Hello and welcome to What We Do in the Moonlight, a Lit By Moonlight spin-off show, where it's not a phase to become a vampire slayer while living in a house full of vampires. My name is Caitlin, and I could be your sweet syrup pie.
Wait, what does that mean?
It's the thing that Nadja says to Laszlo.
Aww.
She goes, "Are you going soft, my sweet syrup pie?" And he
Aww.
goes, "No, my sweet syrup pie, I've gone hard."
Oh, I love that. Okay. So my name is Emberlin, and I am succumbing.
Just in general.
In general, yeah. Overall.
I respect that.
So, thank you everyone for being here, for listening in. Since we've started Lit by Moonlight, we have really enjoyed sharing our love of stories with you, and one of our goals for this podcast has been to spread that love through more mediums than one, so consider this our branch out from books.
That's right, and we really enjoyed laughing and freaking out with you all for our chaotic Our Flag Means Death bonus episode, which you should absolutely check out if you haven't yet, by the way. Mm-hmm. So we decided that we would dive a little bit deeper into the Taika Waititi cinematic universe, the TWCU if you will, with another one of our favorite shows, What We Do in the Shadows.
It is our pleasure, everyone, to bring you this spin-off series where we plan to unpack all of Season 4 as it airs on FX and Hulu this summer. Once you catch an episode of this hilarious show, you can tune into our pod where we'll be breaking things down episode by episode. Before we jump in, we realize we're showing up 3 seasons late to the party,
yes.
Or maybe it's a vampire orgy. So we wanted to give you a little breakdown of this show thus far, our big feelings about it, capital B, capital F, etc., etc. So without further ado, let's jump in. So to start off, Caitlin, can you tell me a little bit about this show?
Yes, I can. What We Do in the Shadows is a documentary-style comedy that follows the night lives of 4 Staten Island vampires, Nadja, Laszlo, Nandor, and Colin Robinson, as they navigate quirky, chaotic mishappenings and seek power and meaning in eternal life. The show is a spin-off of Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi's feature film of the same name, and we will be sinking our teeth into its 4th season starting July 12th.
Yeehaw! So, Caitlin, how do you think this show compares to the movie as a spin-off?
Oh, it's so good. I feel like in a world where so many shows and movies are getting spin-offs and sequels left and right nowadays, I feel like it's really easy to lose the feeling of the original material and why you loved it in the first place. But this show doesn't lose the humor or atmosphere of the original movie. And I think what helps is that both Jermaine and Taika were so hands-on with the show, and you can totally hear their voices like really come through, like the script and even just the way that it's directed. And they have such a specific sense of humor that I'm glad that it translates through the show as well, because that was so prevalent in what made the movie so good in the first place.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if we're going to characterize the show as like a spin-off of the movie, which I think is correct, we need to think about the setup and how the setup kind of makes the whole thing work. Because when we think about spin-offs, typically we have low expectations because there's a lot of spin-offs that originate from other famous American shows. Like Joey came from Friends, and that was a nightmare. Or that 80s show came from that 70s show and starred Glenn Howerton.
Wait.
From
What?
From It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, of all people, and that was also a nightmare.
Why did I not know that?
Yeah, I feel like I just learned that today, and I was like, wow, this looks like a nightmare. Why would anyone do this? And then of course Fuller House, which I refuse to talk about or acknowledge ever. It doesn't exist to me. It's dead to me. But like, there's also been a few notable spin-offs, like Frasier and Better Call Saul. But for the most part, I think we're used to cringing a little bit when we hear that a show is getting a spin-off. And I think what makes this different is that the show is introduced on a popular American cable network, if such a thing exists anymore, as a spin-off of a limited release New Zealand film, and is still being produced by Jermaine and Taika, who are responsible for the original film. And I feel like there's nothing that could go wrong there. When they adapted the ideas from the film for the FX show, I think because the key creative minds behind the film stayed intact, and thus the talent to write characters, plots, and quippy jokes that land really well, it just works better. Like, they really stuck to the source material, and they were super consistent, and I feel like that's what makes it kind of like work perfectly. You know, it all kind of like it just runs so smoothly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like if you're going to do any sort of spin-off or sequel, whatever, like any sort of spin-off, you need to have the people who create, like the creators of the original material involved, because otherwise I feel like it's just easy to go off the rails and become something that it's not, or was never meant to be in the first place. So I really love that they're so heavily involved in it and care about it so much, considering that they created it. So that being said, loving the movie, loving the show, was there a specific moment in the show that hooked you?
It's the mere existence of Colin Robinson for me. Like, that got me from the beginning, because I kind of really thought that Colin Robinson was going to be a one-off character. I was like, okay, this is like a bit, and that's hilarious, but he'll probably like die in the first couple episodes, and then I'll forget about him. But I feel like the writers recognized early on how much you could do with this idea of this guy that's just like so taxing to speak to that you want to pass out when you're within earshot of him.
Yes.
And I'm really glad they did, because I feel like his material is so good. And his contrast from Nadia, Laszlo, and Nandor, and even Guillermo, offers such a fascinating comedic balance. Like, you've got the regular vampires doing all kinds of chaotic, erotic stuff, and then you've got Colin just boring you to death about like different kinds of chewing gum. And that is just such an epic combo. Like, they really knew what they were doing with Colin's character. And when I found out he was going to be like a central part of the show, I was like, this is so funny and unique, and actually like unique in many ways from the film. So I was really excited about that. How about you?
Yeah, no, I feel like Colin Robinson is such a unique character in a sense where he could have easily become a gimmicky type, like, caricature where you know exactly what type of joke he's going to say or what's going to happen when he walks into the room, and kind of like take away from the feeling of the show, but he's not at all.
Yeah.
And he turns out to be a really like fleshed out, hilarious character in his own right. And his contrast, like you said, his contrast to the other characters make him stand out so well. He's so funny.
My icon.
He is. He's your baby girl.
He's my baby girl.
My hook specifically was Animal Control, which is episode 5 of the first season. I feel like this was the episode where the show really started to come into its own, because I feel like the very first episode, it was very similar to the movie setup in a way, not in a bad way, but just in like we're trying to establish this story and this setting, and like trying to get people like who might be new to it like interested in it. And I just felt like Animal Control was the one where they're just like, all right, we know what we're doing, we know these characters, and now we're going like full blast, you know. I feel like it was the funniest episode thus far in the show. I think I even said that to you as I was live tweeting my or live messaging you as I was reading it. I was like, this is so funny. I mean, it's got everything. Laszlo flies into their new neighbor's house via bat form and gets captured by Animal Control. So Nandor, Colin Robinson, and Guillermo have to go rescue him. Meanwhile, Nadia is reconnecting with Jeff, aka Gregor, and she gives him all of his memories from his past life. He gets all of his memories from his past lives back, so he remembers her, and he relives each life, including the one where he was a horse, which took me the fuck out.
Kinky.
He kind of like, as he's remembering all these lives, he kind of like becomes that person that he was, and then all of a sudden he just becomes a horse, and he starts like doing like little thing, and he like kicks his little feet, and it was so fucking stupid. It killed me. And then Laszlo returning to human form in the cage at the animal shelter and just going, where the fuck am I? Like, it made me choke on a popsicle. It was so funny.
I think it was Laszlo that originated the line, what the shit is this? Or like, what the shit is that? Somebody in the show at some point said, what the shit is that?
Yes.
And I literally used that line in my Slack message just today at work after something crazy happened. I was like, what the shit was that? And I have so much like that I owe to that show for giving me like so many good like one-liners to use at work. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
So much.
So that kind of helps us lead into my next question, which is, do you have a favorite quote?
Oh my God, there's so many. There's so many fucking banger lines in this show. It makes me laugh so hard. So it's really, I have a good handful here, so bear with me. First
you
and
should.
foremost, I've mentioned this before on the last episode, which by this point won't have aired yet. But my first and foremost, my very favorite line in this show comes from Laszlo when he says, "He's my best friend. He's my pal. He's my homeboy. My rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese. My good time boy."
My good time boy.
I have never laughed so fucking loud in my life at that. His delivery, Matthew Berry's fucking delivery of every single word that comes out of his mouth is so good. I burst out laughing. Like, I was at a friend's apartment at the time, and just like, I think I just awoke the entire apartment building because of how loud I laughed at that. I rewound it and watched it like 5 different times. I think it's my most watched clip on YouTube now. I go around my house saying it all the time, and it's such a solid line. It's so good. And I love him so much, and I love that line. But moving on, some other favorites are when Colin Robinson slips in blood and yells, "What in the Sam hell?"
Yes.
I think about that a lot. Laszlo says, "She speaks the bullshit," which as the same levels of "what the shit is this?" I say that a lot. She speaks the bullshit. Nadia got in an argument with Nandor, and she says, "I swear I'm going to rip that man into shreds and make a dress out of it. And I'm going to go to his family's house and say, 'Do you like this? This is your son, and I'm wearing him as a dress.'" She's so angry, and she's just, I don't know. That was great. Someone asks Colin, "Why did you wear cologne?" And he responds, "To annoy you." Guillermo asking Nandor, "Why didn't you complete your citizenship?" And he says, "Probably because the Macarena swept the nation. I didn't have time for anything else."
Who did? Who did
Right?
back then?
Who did? Another line that made me laugh out loud, like insanely crazily, was Guillermo saying, "Gizmo, get the dildos. Gizmo, try out the dildos. Gizmo, how are the dildos?" "They're fine." Just like...
Just the implication there that he's using the dildo. Good
that
for
he
him.
actively like had to try them out and just has to go, "They're fine." I don't know what else you want to say. I don't know, just a delivery.
That is the stuff of fan fiction, honestly. And they said, "Nah, this is canon.
They're
this
like,
is real.
This is
did
the
happen."
actual show. Another one comes from Colin Robinson where like he starts to speak and he goes, "You know," and they're like, "Don't ruin it." And he goes, "Oh, I wouldn't think of ruining it." And they go, "Thank you." And before they could even finish "you," he goes, "The Great Genghis Khan." And he just goes off into his whole thing. Don't even remember the context. It was just so fucking funny. Just his deadpan, like, "Oh, I wouldn't think of ruining it." Anyway.
He said, "I'm going to make it better."
I'm going to make it better. Yeah, that's exactly what's going through his head. I'm going to make it better. Another beautiful and favorite moment is when Laszlo says, "Every time Gregor shows up, you, Nadia, start crying. Now I'm not having that. You're my sweet baby, and I'm going to stop that kind of jive." Like, he just sealed the deal on stealing my heart. And that came at the end of season 1. And I was just like, fuck, I love this guy. Another great line, just because of its delivery, was Laszlo, "I'd go myself, but I can't be fucked." He does like this little like shrug motion, like literally like girl shrugging emoji. "I can't be fucked." And then finally, because it started off as a joke and then made me cry when it was repeated later on, is when Colin Robinson says, "We're all a big family here." And I just feel like that's a really good example of the writing of the show, where it takes something where it starts as, the punchline to a joke, and then quickly becomes something more, which I feel like this show does very well. So I really like that one. How about you? Did you have some favorite quotes?
I did. Whenever Nandor says "fucking guy," like, yes! I just like yell. Like, I'm like, I say that all the time now in real life for like completely unrelated situations. Same. So thank you. I'm waiting for the opportunity to like get in an argument with Vishwas again. I haven't had the opportunity lately because he's actually really nice to me. But I'm waiting patiently so I can be like, "fucking guy," like in the argument, and like know that when it's coming, I will be doing it. So
You know that when that does happen, it's going to end the argument because he's just going to start laughing.
His leaves will stop and stare at me. He's gonna be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So there's that, and then I think like just the whole all the dialogue that takes place when in season 1, episode 7, when they're in front of the vampiric council, and this kind of like what the go between them and Colin Robinson. Where they invite Colin Robinson in, and he's like, "Hello," and Nadja's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" It might have been Nadja, might have also been Laszlo, but one of them said that, and then when they're like, "Are you gonna help us, Colin Robinson?" He's like, "Fuck, can I do?"
Yeah,
I'm just like, that always gets to me. That's like my favorite line in the whole show for some reason, just because of the delivery.
Yeah.
And then one more. Actually 2 more. So next one, no, Nandor, that's the Stairmaster, the master of the stairs, which Laszlo says when they're high as hell either after or right before they accidentally kill the Baron, which just gets me every time, like, because it sounds like something that one of us from our friend group would say.
100%.
Just out of the blue, like it's giving Big the cow flies at midnight vibes, which if you know, you know. All the people at home are like turning off this podcast now because they're like, great, they're like bringing inside jokes into the mix. Nobody's interested in that. And then when Nadja's hanging out with all the wives at, I think it's like the Super Bowl party, and she's like, "You're all such strong, beautiful, vicious, vibrant women. How did you all end up married to such boiled potatoes?" Because listen, I don't know how many times I've thought that in real life, but it's pretty much every single time one of my friends gets into a new relationship. Sorry to all my friends, but the men in your lives are like stupid and not good enough for you. And I think that whenever I meet them in real life, and I'm like, oh great, it's the boiled potato. He's here.
Yeah.
So
I think boiled potato is just such a good comparison.
Yeah, because they're boiled potatoes.
They are. So,
yeah.
What song would you play as you slay a community of vampires?
So I had to think long and hard about this because I have an inkling that much like we do for a lot of our books, we will be creating a playlist for this show,
yes,
which you can find on our Spotify. And I thought Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival would be like a really good one, just because it's like the moon's involved, it's nighttime. It's kind of like the type of thing I feel like you'd play if you're like in a badass mood.
Yeah.
That was mine. How about you?
I said Barracuda by Heart, just because I kind of want that to play in the show as Guillermo slays a community of vampires. I feel like that would fit his vibe. Also, it's just a badass song, and I love it.
I'm with you there. I feel like Heart. Oh, I remember when they were coming live to Syracuse, and I think I couldn't go because of something, and I was devastated. Like I like shut everybody out of my room for a couple days because I was like, this was my moment. I'm pretty sure that if I had gone to that Heart concert, I would be a completely different, better person today. But we'll never get to meet her because of, whatever I had going on that day. So it tells you how much I actually care about it that I don't remember. But in the meantime, I would spend eternity with Heart. Caitlin, who from this show would you spend eternity with? Question mark.
Well, it's a good question. Without a doubt, it would be Laszlo. Yes. He quickly became my favorite character. And like I said, every single line he has is so iconic. He's so fucking dumb in the best way possible. He loves his wife Nadja above all things so much that he swore he would never return to his home country again when they rejected her. He has the purest friendships with both their human neighbor Sean and Colin Robinson. He yells "bat" every time he turns into a bat. He canonically wrote Kokomo. He supports the local women's volleyball team without question. He will behead you if you make his wife cry. He is everything to me, and he is the most character ever. Yes. I love him. He's my baby girl.
We stan. We stan a man like that.
What character would you spend eternity with?
Before I move on, I want to say, because I was just thinking this as you were talking, that I feel like Laszlo and Nadja, for some reason, remind me of, like, a better version of Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne. Like, if they were not problematic as shit.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, there's just something there. I don't know why, but they feel like Sharon and Ozzy, but in cursive.
Yeah. but cursive Comic Sans,
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I think that Ozzy and Sharon are Comic Sans. I think that Naja and Laszlo are cursive. Like, if I'm gonna be elitist and say that cursive is the superior font, which cursive isn't necessarily a font, right? It's a writing style. Okay, let me think this through. Like, I really do like, script font. Like they're just better. For me personally, coming back to your original question, if I can still remember fully what it was, Naja and Little Naja. I love Naja so fucking much. Like, she's the definition of a girl boss if there was ever a complimentary definition of a girl boss. Like, she's not giving multi-level marketing corporation, capitalist queen, lean in vibes per se. Like, she's not giving, hey girly, I just saw your Instagram and I think it's cute, I have a great opportunity for you vibes. Like, that's not the girl boss vibes she's giving me. She's giving me, like, turn into a bat and attack Jeff Bezos, making love in a cemetery, eating a cake made out of blood while naked in the middle of an interstate vibes, and I love her for it. Like, I want her to have everything. I would give her everything. I just love her so much. I live vicariously through her. She is my role model. Yep. She's my everything. She is the moment. And Little Naja is just so cute, and she's also very important to me. And I think, like, the Narcissus, is it Narcissus? Yes. Staring into the pond inside of me wants my own little Emberlin, just so, like, I have somebody who will, like, get all my quippy jokes, because sometimes Vishwas doesn't necessarily always catch on, because I'm so smart and amazing and brilliant and beyond anybody else's comprehension. So, yeah. That's why. But that's it. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
And that's not on that. I just want to say, because you bring up Little Naja, I'm so happy that she became a reoccurring character.
Yes.
I thought, like, you know, in the ghost episode, we see that Naja's ghost of her dead self goes into that doll. I thought that was just going to be, like, a one-time thing. But when she popped up again, and then again, and then again, I'm just like, yes, I'm so happy she's just here. And then the whole episode where she runs away because she's not getting enough attention was so good. Like, I love me. Like, what other show can you get a episode where one of the storylines is centered on a doll running away from home? Like,
the doll of one of the main characters' personas running away from home.
It's just, like, literally, her little walk. It's just so stupid.
I feel like people who don't understand that, though, like, the desire to, like, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'll just leave, is, like, so ingrained in me as, like, the household narcissist that, like, I just I love it. It's giving. It's giving.
I also like that she serves as, like, a way for Naja to learn things about herself, and, like, a communication with her where she's just like, oh, I need to take better care of myself. I should start doing this. I was like, this is so good.
It's weird because it's kind of like a personification of a therapy tactic that you see a lot, where it's like, a therapist will tell you to imagine yourself as, like, a little version of yourself and to take care of her. Like, imagine baby Emberlin, for example, and take care of her. And I feel like that's something that can be really effective, and it seems like something that maybe, like, is being channeled through the show when you see, especially after, like, Naja meets herself and Naja's little self is, like, destined to stay with her until she meets her full potential.
Yeah.
That, like, right after that, Naja really starts to bloom as a person, and I just think that's so neat. Like,
I
wow.
It's so good.
I don't know who wrote that. I don't know if it was a woman. If it was, of course you did. You're amazing. If it was, like, one of the main male writers who is, like, Jermaine or Taika, like, that's some amazing insight into what it means to be a woman. And I commemorate you, ? Like, pff, wow.
Whoever wrote it knows what they're doing, and they should keep their job. All right. On that note, what character would you run away to Pennsylvania and assume a fake identity to hide from? I know we talked about the love of our lives in this show, but what character could you not love?
First, the whole Jackie Daytona storyline, she's very important to me. Like, I think that was one of the best written episodes, I think, in television history.
Yes, it was so good. And I think one of my favorite bits happens, I don't know if everyone has caught it, because it's literally at the end of the credits, so I don't know if it'll automatically just play the next episode or what. But at the very end of the episode, you see Laszlo as Jackie Daytona sitting at the bar, and he goes something along the lines of, like, it's come to my attention that Jackie Daytona is the name of a country band that we have no association with. He goes, I don't know why you care, but so-and-so from clearance told me I had to say it. So there you go. I just thought it was so good because they're like, we have to say this, but it was also just so in character for him to say it and in universe for the show as a documentary for them to have to say it. It was just so stupid. And it wrapped up that entire episode in a little bow for me.
It is, and it's important to me because I feel like actually, I think I'll talk about this more later, but actually, I'll talk about it more later. So instead, I'll respond like this. I'll say, ah, ha, 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 that's so funny, I agree. That's my filler for what I was actually going to say here that you'll hear about later. But continue. Oh, well, actually, I'll continue because it's my turn to answer a question.
Who's the character that you would run away to Pennsylvania and assume a fake identity to hide from?
Okay, so the thing is, I don't have any characters that I particularly disliked in the sense that I thought they weren't fleshed out enough or anything like that, and or even hateable or not likable at all, unlikable. The characters that played villain roles, for example, were all likable and entertaining in their own right. So I kind of just tried to go about this thinking about the person who stressed me the fuck out the most, and I think it's a tie. So Celeste from the collaboration episode, who is a familiar that fakes being a vampire to cultivate this very culty vampire familiar lifestyle in her master's house while she's away, was the first person that came to mind, especially because her master is a young girl, a little girl, essentially JoJo Siwa. So I kept wondering, did they base her on JoJo Siwa? Because they just look so familiar and they just have similar vibes, which I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, that's hilarious because that implies that JoJo Siwa is a vampire, and if she is, good for her. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I've known many people in real life who seem like they have this personal brand that's high-key culty. They always need to be surrounded by other people. They always need to be in a power dynamic. They're always wearing a fanny pack for some reason. Hello, darling.
Hello.
How are you?
I got you a brownie.
You got me a brownie.
It's also a croissant if you don't want it.
You can have the croissant.
That's fucking adorable.
The brownie. I love you for this. Anyway, and I'll just go from there. There's always somebody at a party in college or at a networking event that you meet that just has this exact vibe, and they just seem very power hungry. They have this odd power dynamic with other people. They're always surrounded by other people and a little clique. They're always wearing a fanny pack for some reason, and I feel whenever I encounter someone like that in real life, I'm just ooh, I just remembered I have to change my name and move to another state. I can't be here right now. Sorry, bye. And then the second one was Colin Robinson's love interest in Werewolf Feud, Evie, because Vanessa Bayer played her too well.
Yes,
she's an emotional
so
vampire. Good. She's an emotional vampire, and I had to keep reminding myself. I was it's just a TV show. It's just a TV show. She's not real. She's not real. Because I know people like her in real life too, and I was this is too accurate. Please, I'm begging, stop. So those were mine. How about you?
There's not a single character on this show where I'm wow, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Because, there's all, like you said, are just so well written, as well as the vampires, or the vampires, as well as the enemies on the show.
Yes.
But if I had to choose, I said it would be Topher, who was who was one of Laszlo and Nadia's many failed familiars, who was accidentally turned into a zombie, and he just kept trying to eat Guillermo and was super, super difficult to kill. And I chose him specifically because Guillermo can never catch a break, and I was so stressed out for him during that episode because he said that Topher's hiding underneath his bed trying to eat him, and then Topher keeps hitting him with his detached hand, and he just goes after Guillermo, and he falls out a window, and it's this whole thing, and he's just so hard to kill, and I was just he needs a break.
Poor guy.
He's already struggling so much. We don't need a added zombie familiar on top of this. Also, his name is Topher. So
Topher.
So that was the character that I would run away to Pennsylvania and assume a fake identity to hide from.
That's a vibe. That's a mood. So I think now that we've talked a lot about characters that we loved, characters we hated, it's time to continue that like balance of loving and hating and talk about our peaks and valleys from this show. Caitlin, why don't you start us off?
All right,
while I eat my brownie.
Okay, eat your brownie. I think, well, my first peak is that each of the lead characters are so unique and interesting in their own ways and that they have their own storylines. But you never feel like one character is getting the short end of the stick or like, oh, we're focusing way too much on this person. There's no one main character, and I really like that because I feel like this show really thrives on this multi-person like dynamic that they've built here. I really like Nandor's whole quest with like trying to find love in this eternal life that he has. I love Nadia becoming a person in power on the Vampiric Council and working with Nandor sometimes, but also becoming like learning more about herself in that way. I love anything that Laszlo does, which is whatever the fuck he wants. And I love that like he goes off and he does his own thing. Like he has this wonderful friendship with Colin Robinson in season 3, and I feel like it just benefits both of those characters so well. And I feel like it really shows how caring Laszlo is, because he like he'll say one thing, but then like I feel like a lot of his love is within the actions that he does. So he spends so much time with Colin Robinson, and then he learns about him and like he talks to him. And then same with like Nadia, like he's always doing things for Nadia or helping her and just always supporting her. Guillermo's entire story arc of going from familiar wanting to be a vampire to accidental vampire killer to vampire slayer is just one of the most interesting character arcs I've ever seen on television. He's so cool, and I just love like all of these really insane action sequences that he gets where he's just running around and he's killing vampires and flipping the middle finger as he goes backward out a window, and it's just I adore him. And like Colin Robinson has become his own character of learning how to like what it means to be an energy vampire and where does he come from, and like all of the unanswered questions that he's trying to find answers to. And it's just been there's not a dull moment in this show because of how different they all are and how they all play off of each other, and it's so wonderful and so unique, and I don't think another show does it quite as good as what we do in the Shadows.
I second everything you said, because I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, there's just like this balance I think that this show is able to achieve that a lot of other shows aren't when it comes to like character development, telling stories about individual characters. And that's something that I spoke to with my first peak, which was just the great writing in the show.
Yeah.
Which we touched on this a little bit in our favorite quotes discussion. But this show just has so many bangers in terms of one-liners. Like, my partner and I watched this together, and we were laughing out loud as the writing, at the writing delivery of like everything.
Yep.
Hold on, my cat is eating styrofoam. That's never a good sign. No, it's this.
Oh no.
For those of you at home, I'm gesturing to the pieces that my microphone and the microphone stand fit into. My cat is eating the styrofoam because he has frozen corn for brains.
True.
Anyway, I think it's super weird for us to laugh out loud at shows or movies these days. So he is chasing me for this styrofoam. It is not food, my friend. Manny. It is not food. It is not food, my special friend. But like, it's so rare for us to laugh at films and television out loud these days. So this was such a unique and like therapeutic experience for us to just really enjoy the show and not take ourselves too seriously or take the show too seriously. And at the same time, what I appreciate is that Jermaine and Taika take the show seriously and the creators take the show seriously, so we don't have to.
Right.
Because if you go and you watch interviews, they kind of act like it is a legitimate documentary.
Yes.
Like, these people are really vampires. This is not a show. This is a documentary. Like, we are actually videotaping them doing vampire things in real life. This is all true. Like, so when you watch him on Jimmy Fallon, for example,
yeah,
Jimmy
I was
Fallon
gonna
would be like, oh, like, the actors, and Jimmy would be like, what actors? Like,
and
they're real vampires, bitch. Like,
it's so funny. In that interview specifically, if you haven't seen it already, Jermaine Clement did an interview on Jimmy Fallon promoting the show when it was first coming out, and he's just deadpan like amazing.
Schools his ass.
Like,
oh my god.
Literally, Jimmy Fallon, everything went over his head. Like, because Jermaine's just deadpan, like, no, like, these are real vampires, and also there are energy vampires now. And just all of the jokes that, like, all of his jokes were just said so matter of fact that Jimmy just didn't know what to do with it. And it was so funny because the joke in that moment was no longer just the jokes that were coming out of Jermaine's mouth, but the fact that Jimmy was completely clueless. And it's so good. You gotta watch it.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show also like the superiority of like New Zealand and some like English comedies in comparison to like a lot of like the talk shows that are on today, because it's so easy to just like sit there and be deadpan when you're watching like Jimmy Fallon, because you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
But then like you bring someone on like Jermaine who's just like, they're real vampires, bitch. Like, what are you talking about? This is all real. And like just kind of throws everybody for a loop. It's very special. It's an experience that can be so intimate and impersonal.
Yes.
So what was your second peak, Caitlin?
My second peak was, and I said it earlier and we just kind of talked about it, but the sense of humor of this show is so very specific that I cannot quite describe it. And like it might have to do with there's a specific sense of humor within New Zealand and like New Zealand writers, and I mean I could just be talking out of my ass at that point, but I just really feel like it's something so different than what we're used to as Americans and like what we're told is funny, and I love that we get to experience it because it's so fucking funny that like anyone can watch this show and enjoy it for so many different reasons, and there's so many things within the show that you can find funny. I find myself quoting it all the time and rewatching it and finding new things to laugh about it that I completely missed the first time watching it, because sometimes there's just little things in the background that happen and it's so good, or just like little mannerisms that the characters do that are just so funny. Like I said, I've never, like, I talk to the TV when I watch stuff because I'm weird, and I do laugh out loud a lot, but I've never laughed so hard out loud at a show that I'm watching by myself, alone in a room. Like, it's just so good, and I cannot wait for the new season, and I am so thrilled that we get 2 more seasons after this new one to expand this show and laugh about it, because I know I'm going to be in tears at some point, and I just love it so much. What was your second peak?
Well, before we go there, I want to respond to what you said, because I disagree. No, I'm just kidding. I agree.
Actually, this show is really stupid.
No, I completely agree, and like I think it's a great lesson for comedy writers in America, explicitly about like what comedy should be and what it could be. Not what it should be, but what it could be. Because I find recently, because I have just been blazing through a lot of like American comedies lately on like my recent like Netflix and HBO and Hulu binges, and there's just nobody that does it like the writers on this show. Like there's just something, like I think that a lot of American comedies, they try very hard to be edgy and like, I don't know, like quirky in like a way that appeals to Gen Z, but also like a little bit maybe offensive in a way that appeals to, I don't know if I'm going to say older audiences, but like to people who think that like the only way you can be funny is by being offensive. And this show does none of that, because it doesn't need to. Like this show doesn't work too hard to be like, hey kids, this is a cool fun show. And this show also doesn't work too hard to like insult specific groups of people, like queer people and people of color and disabled people, to get a laugh out of the audience, because it doesn't need to, nor should it. And I just really appreciate that. Like, I mean, if you look at like some of the comedies that were popular back in the 2010s, like Glee, for example, the whole basis of Glee, and it was a satire to be fair, but like the whole basis of Glee was like kind of making comedy out of making fun of specific groups of people that a lot of times are like people of color, queer people, disabled people, and like you look back at that today and you're like, but like I think when I look back at that show now in comparison to a show like this, if you could compare them, because some might disagree, I find myself thinking like, wow, look at how far we've come from that bullshit.
yeah my cousin and I were talking about like comedy and how it's changed actually the other night, and how we were saying like how nowadays like those types of comics about like that's just like here's the setup and then here's the punchline, or just like kind of talking about like, you know, just like the kind of go-to like, oh, people will laugh at these jokes that are like kind of putting like one type of person down no matter what it is, that it just doesn't work today. Whereas like today a lot of the really good comics are people who are telling stories, and they have to the jokes are something that you have to think about more than just like we've set it up for you and now here's the punchline and we're giving it to you, and of course you're gonna laugh because that's what it's made to do. So I feel like because like when you have storytelling based comedy, it's like you're all as an audience are in it together. So when you get that callback joke at the end of the set, it's like, haha, I worked for that, and like I got to be a part of that. And it's changing like that. I feel like we're going more in that type of direction, and I feel like this show does it so well because it doesn't work too hard, but it also doesn't give you the easy jokes. It'll give you lines like, I can't even think of an example right now, but like a lot of the lines are something where you have to think about it for a second and then you realize, oh wow, that's fucking funny.
And there's something really organic and original about telling a story versus like making fun of a specific group of people, or like just like depending so heavily on like slapstick jokes to like get through your show. Like, you know, like when you think about like even like the Avengers and like that meme that's like, well, that just happened, because like that's the type of vibe that those movies give, where someone's gonna say like a one-off line with that and everybody in the audience is gonna be like, haha, okay. Like, I feel like I'm glad that we're moving away from that. We're kind of like acknowledging that that's kind of like dead. Dead form of comedy, because like original stories are I think what is becoming more important as a medium. Like everybody's rolling their eyes now when Disney does like a reproduction of something that's already existed like a million times in a million different other formats. Everybody rolls their eyes now when the same joke is told over and over again during each Marvel movie. And this is something, I think, even though it's a spin-off of a film, it's really unique and original, and I think that that's like amazing. That could be my second peak, which I haven't even told you my second peak yet, which is kind of, you know, jumping in with this, which is like the character development is incredible. Vishwas is rooting around in the freezer right now. I like that everybody who's like listening to us right now gets like the ASMR of like my house ambience at like the very end of the day when the cat has decided to eat styrofoam and Vishwas has decided to eat whatever's in the fridge. But like, I've said this so many times. I've pitched this show to friends to watch, and I've said this and I'll say it again. I don't have a favorite character because they're all my favorites. I don't necessarily have a character I dislike because they're all my favorites. I love them all. They are all strong characters. There's no squeaky wheel on the show.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And I feel like going back to the comedy thing, like this show doesn't try to fit the mold of what we're told is funny. Like you go see a Marvel movie and you're like, this is the setup of their character. Now this is the part where they find their powers. Now this is the part where they prove themselves. Like you kind of know what to expect, and sometimes that's okay. Like sometimes I like going to a movie and being like, I know exactly what's going to happen, and that's okay. I'm just here for a fun time. I'm not saying it's always bad, but like it gets old after a while if like, it's just not your thing. And I just feel like this show is so different, and it is okay with standing out like it does, and I just think it benefits because of it.
Yes, agreed. So with that in mind, was there anything that you did not want to praise about this show? Like, did you have any valleys?
First of all, no. If I had to come up with a valley, it would be that I'm going to have to wait a week for each episode now that I'm caught up. That's going to be very difficult for me. I dislike having to... I think the hardest thing with the whole, like, culture of binge watching shows now, when there are shows that come out weekly, like in the olden days, it's so hard now because I'm just like, oh, I just want to watch the next episode. But and I've binged all three seasons of the show, so
Same.
far. So now that I have to now that we have to wait, it's gonna be so difficult. But I actually do like that because I like the whole idea of everybody's watching this together. Like I really loved the feeling of back before streaming services where it's like this show's on at 8:00 on Saturday night and that is it, and you might catch a rerun later, but this is where it's at. And I loved it because it's like everybody in the world who is watching the show is watching it right now.
Yeah.
And we all after the show get online and then we talk about it together, and I love that feeling. So much like my valleys of everything else that we do on this show, it's not actually a valley.
It's just a me problem.
It's just a me thing. And it just proves that, like I said, I have 0 valleys with this show. It's so fucking good. Dare you have a valley of this show?
I don't. Goodbye.
Okay, perfect.
No, but
Friendship
I want
is
to.
not ruined.
I want to.
You want to?
No, I do. Like, I want to be critical. I want to be constructively critical of this show, and it's hard to do because this definitely is my comfort show. Like, this is the show that if I'm looking for something to watch and not think too hard, I would watch this show. Like, it's my safe space. Nothing too treacherous happens that makes me want to suffer in the hours and days after watching. So I guess I'd really, I'd like to, I'm telling you that I would really like to be critical of this show, and I do not have a criticism of this show. But when I get a criticism of this show, I will bring it to you, and you will hear about it. You'll hear it here first, folks.
Yes. We promise we can be critical about the things that we like, but
yeah,
not this
maybe.
one.
No.
Maybe, but not really.
Oh, I got it. Well, no, never mind. I wasn't.
No.
Oh, I have one, but it wasn't. It was kind of a peak.
Wait, what was it?
I guess my valley is I feel like we're kind of moving into a world where tropism, if that's a word, has become kind of the norm for the way we talk about things. And that's something that I think on this podcast I could be way more careful about. But everybody's the enemies to lovers trope, the sister and brother enemies trope, the sun and moon, and I like those things, but I feel like there has been some valid criticism lately about the fact that we've tropified things so much that we've kind of taken away the ability to give a very complex lens to discern and care about and dissect literature and movies. So with that in mind, I was well, I hate that, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately. But I will say, I think this show does a good job of not following tropes. There's no.
I was gonna say, I'm sitting here trying to think.
Where am I going with this?
I know. I'm thinking what trope does this show not do well?
Or rather, what is tropey about this show, if anything at all? And I feel like there is a slow burn aspect, but it's also kind of the responsibility of the person dissecting the media to not do what I'm doing right now and immediately put a blanket label over everything that's happening. I would just say I find that it's easier here to enjoy this show because it doesn't feel like there's an intentional effort to give us a trope of sorts. For example, with Bridgerton, I very much like the second season. I just finished it finally, but I did sense that there was a real desire to give us that essential enemies to lovers moment. And I was fine with that. I'm okay with that. That's great. But you did that last season. And also, I want more. And I also don't want to see those same things happening over and over again, especially since we just spent the last 4 fucking months of our lives talking about enemies to lovers and all the books we've been reading.
We really did.
So I really enjoy this show because there's no room for that. There's no room to be oh, this trope happened. I don't feel that way about this show. So that's the additional peak I guess I wanted to add. That's kind of a valley for other forms of media and maybe myself because, again, I could literally stop talking about things I'm a 14-year-old Tumblr girl. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Is that helpful or meaningful at all? Is that a meaningful contribution? I don't know.
Who cares? We're having fun.
Yeah.
So, would you rather be a regular vampire or an energy vampire? Because this show gave us options of types of vampires that we have. So which one would you prefer to be?
I am a night person through and through. I feel like I'm the most productive at night. I enjoy being alive the most at night. And I've always wanted to fly, and I've always wanted to eat Ben Affleck. So this is my chance.
This is your chance to finally fulfill those dreams.
He looks like he has a decent amount of meat on him.
Yeah. I for one, I would be an energy vampire just because despite my vampire-like complexion and my need to stay out of the sun, I would miss being able to go outside during the day because, to my dermatologist, please do not listen. But I just love the feeling of the sun on my skin. And not when it's like hot, but like when it's just like, oh, it's such a nice day out and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping. What a wonderful day. I would miss that as a vampire. And I think that would make me actually go insane if I couldn't just enjoy the sunlight coming through my windows. So I feel like Colin Robinson as an energy vampire is able to live a normal life and pass as a human. Like he can go outside, he can well, he can't eat, but I think that kind of sucks on either. Wait, it sucks. On either end of the spectrum, but like you can still kind of live a normal life in that way. So I would at least want to be able to blend in with society while also feeding off of them without their knowledge, and then be reborn every 100 years for funsies. So I would be an energy vampire.
That sounds like a real treat, honestly.
It really does.
It's interesting because I feel like you're like, yes, I'd love to be in the sunlight, and I'm like looking for excuses not to go outside. I'm like, sorry, I can't make it to my allergy appointment.
And I have a 2-inch scar on my leg telling me not to go out in the sunlight ever again.
If I go outside, I will literally dissolve. Hence the whole vampire thing. So
yeah.
So let's talk about couples. Caitlin, do you want to start us off? Let's talk about Nadja and Laszlo. I feel like we should just dissect them all, think about them all.
Love to. Nadja and Laszlo. I love their love. I really do. I love how open they are with each other. I love how they've spent hundreds upon hundreds of years together, and they still find each other so wonderful and beautiful and lovable, and they never like get bored of each other, or like they've never come to like really hate each other. I love that we see that they're not perfect and that they argue and they question each other sometimes, but at the end of the day they're still madly in love with each other, and they like talk through their problems. They support each other in everything that they want to do, and they have fun together. Like the episode where they spent like talking about all the songs that Laszlo actually wrote, like Kokomo, and like how he was like ripped off all these years. And then Nadja is just like, yeah, he's so great. And then like she like sings along with him. Like I love that they do that together, and it's not even particularly good, but they're just having fun and they don't care. And also how Laszlo is a lawyer, but not a very good lawyer, and he's never won a case. And Nadja's just like, please just let him win this case so that he can go to sleep at night. I don't know. I love that they do that, and they have cute nicknames for each other, like "You're my sweet baby," or "My sweet syrup pie," and just "My darling," and all that stuff. And I just love them. And like I said it before at the beginning, but the end of the season 1, when Laszlo is just like, you feel how palpable he loves Nadja, and Nadja in return, like how he tells her like, when Gregor is around, you cry, and I don't like it, so I need to put an end to that because you're my sweet baby. And then at the end of season 3, when we find out why he never went back to his home country, is not because of the whores and the whoring, as Nadja put. he goes, I don't give a fuck about that. I care that my people didn't like that I was married to someone who didn't have a name or money, and she's the most beautiful woman I've ever met, and like if they're not going to respect me for that, then fuck them. And so he never went back because he loved Nadja too much, and I just love them. I love them. They invented love. I love their love. The end.
Yeah. I love them too. Very much. I love them because I think like whenever I watch a show that has like a couple, I always find myself kind of like seeing my partner and myself in that person, or like comparing them.
Right.
Because, well, I would be the first to tell you that I feel like television couples are never a good like tell of like a good comparison for like what real life relationships would be like. So it's like super rare that I look at a couple, I'm like, this is a realistic representation of what it's actually like to be in love with somebody. I love them because they did remind me a lot of my relationship with my partner. Because I'm like really stubborn and prickly, and Vish is just like, he just like adores me and worships me and like the ground I walk on for absolutely no reason other than that he just really genuinely unconditionally loves me, like hence him bringing me a brownie during this recording.
Yes.
Whilst I'm like, please go away, I'm trying to record. But like I feel like that's all you can ask for to be represented in television is like two people who unconditionally love each other. And even if it's like rocky sometimes, it's not like concerning, it's not like problematic, like I feel like that's all you can ask for in life too, is just to be fully and wholly loved by someone who accepts your flaws and can still love you while seeing the parts of you that are possibly the most horrifying and unlikable. Right. Like for example, I remember one of my favorite episodes is where Laszlo shares all of the pornography he's done with Nadja, and she's like, these are boring. Because like she's just like, this is not like, I love that there's just like an honesty there between them, that like he can be like, look at this cool thing I'm doing, and she's like, this is boring, babe. Like this is not good. So whenever they're on screen, I'm like, this is the straight couple I want to absorb content about. The only straight couple I want to absorb content about, like,
but they're not even straight.
Well, heterosexual.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. The next couple we have, of course, is Nandor and Guillermo. And I have full faith that this is a slow burn relationship, baby. When I first started the show, I knew that a lot of fans... I was late to the show, okay? I literally, like, binged it within, like, 2 weeks of each other. And that was 2 weeks ago. But when I first started the show, I knew that a lot of fans shipped these two characters together because I'm on Tumblr, and these vampires / familiar have popped up on my dash multiple times, but I just never had any context for it. And I knew people shipped Nandor and Guillermo, and watching it, while I didn't immediately think of them as a couple at first, I could totally see the instances where people would ship them. And I mean the first episode starts with them celebrating an anniversary, and Nandor gives Guillermo a really cute, like, sparkly portrait of them. And it was just really cute, and it was like all right there. But I firmly believe that Guillermo deserves so much better than Nandor, where he's at right now specifically. I feel like before they could ever actually become a couple, Nandor needs to work on himself and start to see Guillermo as a person rather than just someone who does his bidding and is a familiar who wants to be a vampire. Like, I feel like Nandor's just like, fine, if you do this for me, I will make you a vampire, but like consistently, and he continues to not follow through. And like, now that this show is like going in the direction of Nandor being on a journey to find love in his eternal life, and Guillermo is literally right there in front of him, and Guillermo has been shown to obviously have feelings for Nandor, but Nandor's just not on the same page as him, so he needs to put the work in before this could happen. And we have at least 3 more seasons for them to grow together and for this to become a thing. So I think we're going to slowly start to see that formation happen this season. How, I don't know, and I won't even pretend to guess because I trust the writers of the show to go in that direction. But I love them, and they've been fun to watch, to see how they are going to get there and what is going to happen along the way. So it's been very fun to watch.
Yeah, I like how everyone on Tumblr is like, right before we actually got any promos for season 4, was running like super angsty fan fiction about them being away from each other while Nando's on his little like eat, pray, love journey. And but now we have like promos that suggest that like, nah, they're discoing. Like, it's just disco. Like, no angst, just disco. I love that.
No angst, just disco. Put that on a t-shirt.
I wonder if like the writers, or not even the writers, I wonder if FX executives saw season 4 already and saw that Nandor and Guillermo don't get together in season 4, and we're like, we got to give you guys at least 5 or 6 more seasons to fix this. Like,
yeah, really.
Like a 5th and 6th season to fix this, because like we need this.
God bless them.
But yeah, I love them so much. Like, their dynamic is very unique. I feel like some of the most popular television relationships have this like dark light dichotomy, or like this like golden retriever versus cat vibe. And in this case, they're both just kind of dark and brooding, but also kind of soft, and like both longing for some meaning in their lives and that their current experiences don't offer them. So I feel like there's a setup there for them to find each other, to find that in each other. And when that does happen, I will be there with my popcorn, watching, enjoying. So yeah, agreed.
So if you were an energy vampire and could bore someone to death, what's the topic that you would talk about for hours on end?
I have quite a few. I have like a lot of hyperfixations, as Caitlin knows.
Yes.
So I'm gonna say in this order: financial wellness, like student debt specifically, like very important. Like, that sounds weird, but I'm in like all my friend groups, I feel like I'm the person that people come to for advice on paying off student loans or like college affordability or like credit card debt.
This is true.
And I spend like way too much time in finance classes in college to not care this deeply about it and want you all to take care of yourselves financially. Like, please. So there's that. And then my final three after that would, of course, be, as should always come after financial wellness, the world's best preserved mummies, shipwrecks, and Mount Everest.
Very well.
Those are all very important to me. How about you?
First of all, I want to say Mount Everest is a new one that I haven't heard of. So please tell me all about it after this podcast.
I'll tell you a little bit about it right now, okay? Because I think everybody deserves to know that last year when I was in like crisis mode for finals, I pulled an all-nighter where I spent literally all night learning about Mount Everest and every person that is now on Mount Everest unalive. So yeah, I know about every single person on Mount Everest and like all of the most like horrible conditions and all of the seasons when things get the worst. I literally stayed up all night learning about this, and then I had to sleep all day for like 18 hours after I did that because I was just so obsessed with that. This is a dark place in my life, but I'm glad for what I've learned from that experience.
But I have a fun fact to give when you're at a
so
party.
So many fun facts, yeah. So many opportunities for people to hear my fun fact, make an odd face, and then slowly walk away from me because they're like, why do you know so much about all of the poor dead people on Mount Everest? Anyway, continue. You tell me your fun thing that you would talk about.
It is and always will be whatever my current obsession is, which can change depending on what I'm reading or watching.
It's changeable.
So, yeah. And so currently I would be giving my full uninterrupted TED Talk on Our Flag Means Death because, yeah, it's been 4 months and I am still losing money from this tenant because it's living rent-free in my head and has no signs of leaving anytime soon. I thought that maybe it would die down after season 2 got renewed. It hasn't. We're still here. We're still here thinking about it every single day. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just saw what you put for your favorite pop culture vampire later in this episode.
We'll get to it.
I'm distraught. Okay. So, Caitlin, which vampire on the show would you want to be familiar to?
Okay, so this is hard because immediately I was going to say Laszlo and also, therefore, Nadia. But then I remembered that season 2 literally opened with a montage of all of their familiars dying horribly and then having to get a new one and then that person dying horribly and then just repeating over and over until they finally got to Topher, who eventually died horribly. So I don't know. Topher. So I don't know if I want to risk that. But if that wasn't on the cards, 100% Laszlo. And also Nadia, because they are a couple and they share a familiar. So them. But if history repeats itself and I would die horribly if I became the familiar, I would have to say Nandor, because even though he's not the best person who would treat me completely well, and if it means Guillermo can still keep his job, then maybe I could be his familiar and working with Guillermo and we could become buddies, and then we could be petty and bitch about Nandor behind his back whenever he does something shitty towards us.
You guys could totally be unionized too. Like, familiar union.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Workers of the world unite.
So which vampire on the show would you want to be familiar to?
I guess Laszlo can like get his own familiar. Not that I don't love Laszlo, but like Naja, because I would deadass just spend my whole life supporting her dreams with no desire for compensation by way of becoming a vampire in return. Like, I would follow her to the ends of the earth. Like, she is my queen. Like, I bow down. Like, I will settle for like special assistant. I would literally do anything for this woman.
I respect that.
So, yeah, that's mine.
Who is your favorite pop culture vampire?
Of all, like, in general?
Yeah.
I know what you're gonna say, and I just like.
Just say your answer.
Here we go. So I said Alice Cullen. I'm trying to like put it off. I'm trying to avoid it. I'm trying to like stall. Whenever I get sad, I think about her popping her leg up in the air to the tune of Muse's Supermassive Black Hole and pitching a baseball, and it just makes me feel like women are invincible and they can do anything. Like,
I also like that What We Do in the Shadows totally did that in the game with their kickball game. When Supermassive Black Hole started playing, I yelled.
That was absolutely based. Yeah. So what's yours, Caitlin?
It's Morbin time.
I fucking hate you.
No, I don't. Okay, I saw that you put this question and I was like, I really don't have one. I put that for the meme because, first of all, I saw Morbius and I wish I got my money and time back. Don't watch it. Second of all, I never got into vampires and werewolves ever. It just wasn't a thing I was like wanted to watch or was interested in. So I literally Googled all pop culture vampires, and other than the Count from Sesame Street,
I love him.
and
Favorite.
I know of Nosferatu because of that one SpongeBob episode.
Nosferatu. Yeah.
And of course all of the Cullens from Twilight that I and my mother were forced to watch because we didn't hold up our end of the book reading bargain with my aunt and cousin. We were supposed to read Twilight. They were supposed to read The Hunger Games. They read The Hunger Games. We did not read Twilight. So we were forced to watch all of the movies. It was a fun time.
Damn.
And so I don't have a favorite one. So I can't really answer it other than
I just love how you say you were forced to watch the Twilight movies as if it's not a fucking privilege to experience the Twilight movies.
I know.
How dare you?
We literally were like we went and visited them. They're like, guess what time it is, and we watched all of the movies.
I love those.
I do appreciate them though now because they
should.
are just fun to watch.
They're a treat.
I can't say I won't read the books because both my aunt and cousin listen to this podcast, and I told my aunt maybe I will read it again and try it again. So maybe, but not right now. I don't
think lying to your family is like a reasonable thing to be doing right now.
I don't like lying to my family when I'm in one of their houses currently. So until then, it will and always it shall be Morbin time. Only because it's fun to say it's Morbin time, and I also want to emphasize that's a horrible movie. I still don't know what happened in it. Also, Jared Leto bad. Do not like. So that's my
answer. I would eat him first instead of Ben Affleck.
That's nice.
That man.
You can do both.
He needs to
Volcano Los Dos.
He needs to leave. He needs to go. So I do have one more question. I realize we didn't put it on here, but I feel it's like necessary for us to like dig into season 4. What did you think of the season 3 finale?
Oh my god. First of all, I have so many thoughts, and you know this because oh my god. I did not see that coming. Okay, except I did, but I didn't see the one part coming. I told Emberlin as I'm watching it, it got to the point where Nandor was like, I'm going to leave. I can't even remember where he's going, but he wanted to go somewhere and told Guillermo he's not coming. But then eventually stuff happened, and then Guillermo was going to go with him on this journey together. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if history repeats itself in the fact where two characters plan to run away together and then get separated somehow and not know why they're separated, and one gets left somewhere waiting for the other person to show up and they don't show up, but then they continue to go onto the journey anyway, alone and upset, I will have 2 nickels. And it's not a lot of money, but it's weird that it happened twice, because what fucking happened is fucking Guillermo and Nandor get split up, and Nandor leaves without him at the train station because, and I didn't see this part coming, like Nadja and Laszlo are gonna go off to London and do their thing, and they have their coffins all set up, and Nadja is all in her coffin ready to go, and Guillermo's helping them, and fucking Laszlo pushes Guillermo into the coffin and says, "Take care of my wife for me," and then he leaves. And like that's how it ends up, because Laszlo has to come back and take care of baby Colin Robinson, which is a whole other thing to unpack. So maybe I'll like I recorded my reaction for Emberlin when I watched it, so maybe I'll post that somehow somewhere. But I cannot wait to see how this gets resolved. What did you think?
It was the same for me. Like I would have never anticipated in my lifetime that Colin Robinson would basically cocoon himself inside of his dead corpse, hatch, drag his small infant body into the other room for Laszlo to find, and recognize there and then that he must father this child and make him into something, like, essentially like make him into something amazing. And I'm excited for how that goes in season 4. But like, more importantly, I remember when I first watched this by myself, I just like screamed because I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all. Like, I knew that Colin Robinson had passed. I you know, had some suspicion that maybe he wouldn't be gone forever, but I had no suspicion whatsoever that this was how they'd bring him back. And it's just like iconic, like, because like in what other show can like a character die and then just like actually be reborn as an infant child? Like, you can't. You can't get that type of gold in plot development anywhere else. So
I really didn't expect, like, the whole episode before, like, we find out Colin Robinson is dying, and I'm texting everyone like, he's not, it's fine, they're gonna figure something out, because this is not that type of show. And even when he was like lying there dead, I didn't believe it until Nandor accidentally smushed his face in, and I was like, how do you come back from that?
You don't. Yeah, they wanted us to know.
They wanted us to know he was dead, but not for long. And I just cannot wait. Just seeing the season 4 trailer, I cannot wait to see the dynamic of Laszlo becoming a father to Colin Robinson. It's so good. It's so fucking good, and I cannot wait. I can't wait for that. That's honestly even more so than them reuniting with Nadja and Guillermo, and then Guillermo reuniting with Nandor, and like that whole thing. I can't wait for the Colin Robinson and Laszlo father-son storyline that's gonna happen.
That, and then Nadja like opening her own nightclub. Those are the two things that I'm gonna be like thriving with this next.
I'm so excited
through all of July and August. Like this is all very important to me. These are all special treats just for me.
It is, and the fact that they used Rasputin as the song choice for the trailer was just genius. I love it. I'm so excited.
Yes! Oh, I'm excited too. So, Caitlin, on a scale of 1 to 5, how many vampires accidentally killed by Guillermo do you rate What We Do in the Shadows? At least the first 3 seasons.
Perfect score, baby. 5 out of 5 vampires accidentally killed by Guillermo, because the show is just so fun and I have no problems with it. Let's go.
Yeah, same here. This is like my comfort show for a reason. It's just like the perfect mix of good writing, good character development, good plot development, good vibes. Looking forward to coming back here and talking about it more when the first episode airs of the 4th season. So
we shall talk soon. Well, thank you for listening to What We Do in the Moonlight, a spin-off show of Lit by Moonlight. We hope you join us on this journey as we come back every week to discuss new episodes of FX and Hulu's What We Do in the Shadows starting July 12th.
See you there.